In this video, I'm sitting down with James from Rebel Scum Podcast, and we're talking Force Ghosts. What is up, YouTube? It's Josh. This is the Den of Nerds. I, as you know, am sitting down with James because you just watched that first part of the video. But we're talking Force Ghosts, and specifically about Qui Gon Jinn as a Force Ghost and where this whole craziness that is the Force Ghosts began. So real quick, James, for people that maybe don't know who you are or what the Rebel Scum Podcast is, which they should, but if they don't, let them know.
Well, I'm James, and I am one half of the Rebel Scum Podcast. I guess that's a little less than a half now because there's a bunch of us. We are a YouTube channel / podcast where we talk for about an hour a week about Star Wars. We have a couple other shows that we do too, and I'm so happy to be here talking Star Wars with you.
Heck yes, and you guys probably recognize James because he's been on the Nerdy News Hour now twice in the last 3 weeks, so he occasionally will hop on there, do the show with us. I've done a lot of videos on their channel. We all met up at Celebration, so you're going to be seeing a lot of James doing Star Wars stuff with us, me doing Star Wars stuff with them. So yeah. Let's get right into it. We're talking Force Ghosts. And then, by the way, guys, I should mention right away, this is a two-parter. So this is kind of a cool thing we're going to do. The first part of this two-part video is focusing on the Force Ghost training itself, Qui-Gon, what all of this means. The second part of the video, which is going to be just as interesting, is what role do we think Force Ghosts are going to have in The Last Jedi and beyond. So let's get right into it. So, James, talk to me about Force Ghosts and Qui Gon Jinn, and a lot of this comes from the Clone Wars, right?
The Clone Wars really delved deep into Force Ghosts and what it took to become a Force Ghost. And for anyone that's watched just the movies, just the Star Wars episodes 1 to 6, if you only watch the original trilogy, you just think a Jedi dies and disappears and they become one with the Force. But what actually, when you first watched The Phantom Menace, that was the first time we ever saw a Jedi die and not vanish. Qui-Gon Jinn got killed by Darth Maul and laid there with a hole through his chest for the end of the movie, and no one ever knew what would become of him. And then in Attack of the Clones, we heard Qui-Gon's voice when Anakin slaughters the Tusken Raiders. You can hear Qui-Gon say, Anakin, no!
Yep.
And then at the end of Revenge of the Sith, Yoda tells Obi-Wan that an old friend has found a way to come back from the dead?
Yeah, I think that's the way he words it. He's like, an old friend has returned from the realm of the dead, or something like, or back to the realm of the living, or something like that. But yeah, that's pretty much what he says.
Yeah, and then you learn a lot more of it through the Clone Wars TV show and what is, and now we don't really know where Force Ghosts stand anymore. We don't know what it takes. Will Luke become a Force Ghost? We don't know. And Anakin was able to learn very quickly at the end of Jedi how to become a Force Ghost. Very quickly.
Right, and that's something I want to touch on too, is that, because that's an anomaly. That could just be because he is the one. So here's the thing. So in Clone Wars, there are two moments that Qui-Gon Jinn comes back as a Force Ghost, or as at least a Force entity, right? The first is actually in, I think it's season 1. It's the Mortis episodes, right? Which actually takes place in the timeline around season 3, which is weird, and Clone Wars is weird and all that. But you actually see Qui-Gon on Mortis. He shows up and talks to Obi-Wan, and he talks to Anakin, and he is in Force Ghost form. Now later on, when he's talking to Yoda, he says that he cannot take form because his training is incomplete. Now, what this goes back to is in the Revenge of the Sith novelization, it is implied and basically explicitly spelled out that Qui-Gon was training under the Wills, that he had some kind of a connection and training with the Wills. And this is different than Jedi training. So basically, on his own, Qui-Gon was starting to dabble in stuff that was beyond just the traditional ways of the Jedi. But we don't really know how much of that is actually canon now, because unfortunately that novelization, which is incredible, is not considered canon.
No, Revenge of the Sith is canon.
Revenge of the Sith novel is canon?
All those novels are canon, yes.
I don't know about that. Wait,
All right.
where
Wait, okay. Well, maybe you're right. I thought all the novelizations were
all the
canon
originals
stuff.
are. All the original trilogies are, but I think
Not the prequels?
not the prequel novelizations, from what I understand. Yeah. Shock's face.
What? Well, that's another conversation. Well,
I think
I almost
it's-
just knocked down my set again.
Well, I think it's because of this stuff. I think it's because of the Will stuff, man. And we'll have to double check.
Yeah, we'll double check because, well, you might. I'm not saying you're not right because you probably are, but that is
A little weird.
huge. That's huge not to make canon
I'm
those
90%
storylines.
sure that they're not. I mean, obviously the movies are, right? But
The movies are, but nothing happens in the movies.
I know, right?
Well, in terms of that,
Right.
but it is interesting that they would mention the Wills and his learning from the Wills and how the new movies are. The Wills are very factored into these movies. The Wills are going to play a part. Even like Rogue One they mentioned Guardians of the Wills, and the Wills were something that were protected. They're very important to this universe, and the general movie-going audience has not been introduced to the Wills yet. No one exactly knows what. Even in Rogue One, you don't know exactly what the Wills are, but you know it's something big. It's something to do with the Force as well. You know that it all has something to do there. So it's kind of. I could still see that maybe that aspect of Qui-Gon, even if it's not canon, it could still be in some way canon, where the Wills could be the path to becoming a Force ghost,
Right.
possibly.
Yeah, I'm pretty damn sure that it's a Will thing. And what's interesting is so here's what's really crazy. His training's incomplete, and yet he's able to be in ghost form on Mortis. Do you think that's just because it was in Mortis? Like, you know what I mean? Like, or do you think here's the real question. Why was he able to manifest as a ghost on Mortis and then years later not able to do so when he's talking to Yoda?
I definitely think it was because of the Mortis
Yeah.
factor. I think that's a huge part, and I think that just kind of allowed him to
Right.
manifest into the ghost form. And because I don't think Yoda, I don't think Qui-Gon has the ability to become a Force ghost. Not that that's the reason why we haven't seen him. It's probably contract disputes, but
Right.
I think that's why we won't see him. I think going forward, not to spoil anything we'll talk about later on, but I think Qui-Gon is stuck in this limbo where he can somewhat communicate, but it's very limited communication. And maybe it's like Mortis is the key to Qui-Gon's survival
Right.
in the afterlife-ish of Jedi right
Well,
now.
arguably, and this is a nice segue into our next topic, but arguably the Mortis episodes do not actually take place in the living galaxy. It's presumably all of that takes place within the cosmic force, within the metaphysical realm. So it's possible that Qui-Gon was able to manifest in ghost form because it wasn't reality. It was almost like a dream. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I think is going on too. And when he says to Yoda that my training was incomplete, but he says some very interesting stuff. He says, I exist in a place where there is no present or future or past, because Yoda asks him, see the future, can you? And he says, I exist in a place where there is no future. And so he is in that eternal realm. He is arguably in the cosmic force. And real quick, let's break that down. The difference between the living force and the cosmic force. So essentially, guys, what is going on here is everything that is living, think of it as physical and metaphysical. Everything that you can touch that has, organisms, rocks, different things, planets and things like that, that is all the living force. And the cosmic force is beyond all of that. Presumably where the Wills exist, where Qui-Gon is at. You can think of it as heaven, the metaphysical realm, nirvana, whatever you want to call it. That is there. And the idea that Lucas wanted to present, and not, he didn't really present it in a really good way, but was that everything that is alive creates a force that then flows into the cosmic force, which is eternal, and then that flows back to the living force through the midichlorians. So very interesting idea there. But James, what do you think, man? Like, the Wills, are they this thing that exists do you think they're a part of the cosmic force?
I think they're part of the unifying force. I think they cover both. I think they surround all living and unliving organisms. I think they are, how do I word it, basically? But they are how the galaxy survives, how it is alive. Everything is based on the wills and what. God, it's really hard to put it into words.
And you know what? It's incredibly hard to put it into words, and that's why parts of the prequels don't work. Because you know what I mean? And remember, too, originally, the whole idea of Star Wars was going to be that it is being told to us by the wills. And the wills were this omnipotent, godlike things that were watching over everything. And at the end of the day, he abandoned that because it was too trippy. Because he probably couldn't, you know what I mean? Like, he couldn't even figure it out.
And he just called it the Force.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the wills are... Well, we know that there are a Journal of the Wills.
Right.
And then they were a keeper for the Journals of the Wills. And who wrote the wills? Are they even called wills anymore? That's a question. I think they could be like godlike, ancient something. Maybe not even beings. Maybe they're just spirits that kind of hover around and float around. You can't see them or feel them or touch them, but you know that they're there. And they do have. They let their powers transcend onto maybe the alien races that live along the galaxy. Ah, man, the wills are complicated.
Yes, they're a complicated thing, and I think that's why the story group's probably trying to figure that out. But we're both pretty much convinced that is where the Force Ghost training comes from, right?
Yes, yeah, 100%.
So here's how it happens. So Qui-Gon's the first, presumably the first guy that gets that knowledge. He shares it with Yoda during Mortis, during the last episodes of Clone Wars, and then at the end, he shares that with Obi-Wan and says, "Training I have for you." Now, here's my question to you: on Tatooine, do you think Obi-Wan is learning from Yoda? Is he learning from Qui-Gon? Is he learning from the wills? Go.
Yeah, I think whenever I think of an Obi-Wan standalone film, I'm always like, I don't want to see that because I don't want to know I don't really want to know what Obi-Wan was doing in between Sith and New Hope. I kind of like the idea he just kept to himself on Tatooine and watched over Luke, and then he kind of became this old man, and that kind of adds to his lore, I think, even more, where he just kind of disappeared, which is what A New Hope is really about. But besides all that, I think if you say this Obi-Wan movie is about him learning to essentially cheat death, but in the Jedi way, not the Sith way, I think that's when it gets you. That could even be an adventure film where you take it almost in the same respect as when Jedi have to find kyber crystals. They have to find their kyber crystal, and then they go off on an adventure and they get their crystal. They could be a story in there like that about Obi-Wan being trained by, I'm going to go Qui-Gon. I don't like the idea so much that him and Yoda had a lot of communication over the years. I'm not big on that, to be honest. I know that it's kind of been hinted at, and we know Yoda talked to Ahsoka and Ezra, and I just really like it when they're separate. When Yoda and Obi-Wan have disappeared and they just kind of keep to themselves, and this rebellion is growing in the middle and they're on this side of it. I would like it if Qui-Gon came back and he's like, look, I'm going to teach you how to do what I was not capable of doing and follow my steps. And even if it's just Qui-Gon's voice guiding him, and then every once in a while, leaves form, his figure or something like that in the wind and like that. And I think an adventure film where he has to go on this adventure and discover this, and this, and that from Qui-Gon, and maybe through Qui-Gon the Wills, like that is a movie I'd be interested in seeing, and a story I would actually really be intrigued in reading that as well.
Right. No, that's a good thing. Here's my thing. Honestly, there's one line that makes me actually think it was Yoda, and it's in the Twin Sons episode of season 3 of Rebels, where Obi-Wan says, "You're in the wrong place, Ezra Bridger." How the fuck does he know who Ezra Bridger is? Here's the only way he knows is Yoda, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
it's the only way. And that's what
I said when I know there have been hints that they have been communicating, but I just like it when they're separate. Like, it's more fun when they're not separate, obviously. But as a story and as a whole, it's almost more like this huge thing happened, and because of that, these two people who spent every day of their lives together now haven't seen each other in the last 30 years. And that's what I like about it. I like that they've been isolated. But at the same time, obviously, the direction they're going in is they have not been.
Right.
And obviously, if you do an Obi-Wan movie, how do you not want Yoda in that movie at the same time? I just think having Qui-Gon in there would make way more story sense than Yoda. And like, if they could communicate, why wasn't Yoda communicating in A New Hope with Obi-Wan or Luke?
Oh, well, arguably he was. Like, the thing is, remember, Yoda says in Empire for a long time have I watched this one. And he's talking about Luke.
He's watched, yeah. But has he watched him through the Force or through Obi-Wan?
True.
Maybe,
yeah,
I guess.
True. It's such a weird thing, and there's a lot of crazy Space Wizard stuff going on with this whole thing. But I kind of like the idea, because correct me if I'm wrong, but Qui-Gon, he doesn't hear Qui-Gon's voice, Yoda, that is, until he gets to that planet, right?
Yeah.
So the whole idea was probably that Qui-Gon was able to draw Yoda there, but not able to, presumably not able to communicate with him directly until he was there. So maybe Qui-Gon can't communicate with Obi-Wan directly unless Obi-Wan were to go there. Now here's the caveat. I think that when they're Force ghosts, they can all communicate openly. Because think about it, they're all in the same place. They're all with the cosmic force, right? So I think that, if they needed to catch up and, have a few beers or whatever, they can totally do that now in ghost form. But I don't think Qui-Gon would be able to project himself all the way to Tatooine and teach Obi,
Do you think that with Qui-Gon not being able to become a Force ghost fully, he can that Obi-Wan and Yoda and Anakin live in the same realm as Qui-Gon, or do you think can they still communicate? Can Qui-Gon communicate with Ghost Force Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Anakin, or is he separate from them, and maybe they can't?
No. I the way I understand it, we obviously don't know, but the way I think of it is totally, dude. They can totally communicate with each other. And the thing is, too, here's what's weird. We don't know the rules or whatever, but Qui-Gon says, my training's incomplete. But then how's he able to train Yoda to be able to do it fully? And if he didn't, then someone else trained Yoda. And who's to say that Qui-Gon couldn't have finished his training and show up as a Force ghost eventually? You know what I mean?
Well, if Anakin's able to learn how to become a Force ghost in the span of Luke taking off his helmet and dying, which is not very long.
Well, you know what's interesting? Let's talk about that. So let's go right into this, and maybe that'll be a good place to leave it for the first part of the video. But because here's my thing. I don't think he got that training at all. Now, Anakin does communicate with Qui-Gon on Mortis. Qui-Gon is literally telling him stuff, and that stuff is so cool for people. I think for people like you and me especially, people that like the prequels. We're like, dude, yes, I will. He wants to train the boy. Like, he's asking Obi-Wan, have you done what I asked? Are you training the boy? And stuff like that. And I love that stuff. I don't think Anakin was trained to be a Force ghost. I believe that because he is a manifestation of the cosmic force, that when he died, no matter what, he was going to be a Force ghost. You know what I'm saying? I don't think he received that training. What do you think about that?
I actually really like that. I'm not sure where it stands on canon. If I know they have said that Qui-Gon trained him in that amount of time, but I'm not sure if that's canon or if that's one of those Instagram facts that people make up. I'm pretty sure they make up.
Love those
I don't
facts.
know. Yeah, they're great. But I'm not sure about that. But I really like that idea that no matter what, this was what was going to happen. Possibly only happen, though, if he returned to the light. Because I still don't like the idea, and I don't like that in The Force Awakens they even toyed with the idea of a dark side Anakin Force ghost. Anakin isn't dark anymore. They need to just let that go. He turned. He's back. He's not. It's just, for me, that's it. But I really like the idea that no matter what was going to happen, this person is the chosen one, and because of that, he is going to become a Force ghost. And I still think that this new trilogy is very much about Anakin Skywalker.
Yes, which is a theme that you guys have talked a lot about on Rebel Scum. Really, really awesome. So let's leave part one right there. Guys, make sure you go check out part 2 because I'm guaranteeing it's going to be really, really dope. And go check out the Rebel Scum Podcast. Honestly, if you're like me and you can't get enough Star Wars content, I love it. Every time they put up a new episode, I'm like, woohoo! And I literally can put it on whether I'm driving or working and throw it on. And feels like talking about Star Wars with these guys. So, James, thank you very much for being here, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, guys, James is on all the time, so you're going to get used to hearing him and I talk Star Wars. Yep, totally. As I always say, guys, I hope you're having an awesome and nerdy day. See ya!